Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversation with Masters. Today, we start from how much of our parents' story we carrying and how much belongs to us. Today, with us, it's Illi. Welcome.
Thank you, Marius. Very nice to be here.
I'm very happy you take the time to be here today with us to explore some questions. Please introduce yourself in the way that feels most authentic to you.
My name is Illi Adato. I am a therapist, a systemic therapist. I work in the field of systemic and family constellations. I established just over 10 years ago the London School of Systemic and Family Constellations, and just been awarded a Master Constellator by the CI organization, Constellations International. And it's nice to be recognized, and it's nice to be here.
We start directly from our parents, and I think 85% of the humanity have some issues with the parents. It's nothing new, maybe. So I have this curiosity to ask you: how can people handle situation when a parent keeps asking for support or resources, attention, money?
Depends how old is the child.
Of course,
If
we
the
speak about
child is being asked to do that while they're still children, while the child is still a child, then of course that is a heavy burden on the child. It requires the child to stop behaving as a child and begin to operate in the realm of the adults, and that has its own weight, its own difficulty and challenges, which are not necessarily part of what a child's reality will be. So that depends. If it's an adult being requested, then an adult has the capacity of discernment. The adult can say, stop. Maybe until now it was okay, but this feels too much, or find practical ways to help the parent. But
in some.
the difficulty comes from dependency. When there is dependency of the parent on the child, even if the child is adult, then that creates a potential difficulty.
Of course, our listeners, from the statistic, I can tell you, they are adults. But what I see around me, sometime I see these dynamics in families, right? They ask for money, you know, and after is coming, or if you put some boundaries, you put some limit. Hey, now, sorry, but I can't help you today. I'm very busy with all my things, my family, my responsibility. um, Very often the parents they react, right? So there it's a glitch, is the question how we can manage that.
Yeah. The issue is often one of guilt. The mechanism that is being used here when the child is not anymore a child and the parent is seeking the help of the parent, we are always children. So when the parent is seeking the help, the mechanism that it becomes operated is often relies on guilt. So the child feels guilty, and the child may feel split between their own family, if they have one, and their love to their parents, split between the career and the need to be independent, and the need to have one's income and pay for one's bills, to supporting the parents that gave life to the child. So there is always an element of guilt, whether it is explicitly present or implicitly present. And knowing our place, knowing the child's place in the family system and what can be of tangible help for the parents is something that requires awareness. And in that, awareness is key, as it is with most of what we see in constellations. What it brings, the biggest contribution of the constellation process is often providing awareness to not only what happens between the parent and the child, not only focusing on the financial difficulty as you focus on asking for money, but looking at a bigger picture. A parent that reaches out constantly and persistently to the child may have their own trauma that is unaddressed or not fully looked at. And then it becomes from a parent's point of view, it becomes the child's responsibility. However, if the parent is an adult, and presumably both parents are adults, it would help a great deal if they are able to look into their own past and their own entanglements. And if they don't, then it can be done single-sidedly by the child. And often what we get in constellations are children of parents who are constantly asking for the children to rise up to their own challenges, to the parents' challenges. And the children of those parents, when they see the bigger picture, when they see the trauma of the mother and father, there's a lot of insights and there's a new way of seeing and holding this dynamic, this situation. And out of that awareness can come discernment. And discernment is a direct relation to awareness. So it cannot happen without awareness. So that's where the constellation process becomes very, very useful.
Yeah, because sometimes to be maybe the secret, the inside, the golden nuggets, like I say always, is just to be aware about the role we play in our families, right? We can take the parents' place, and with that mind, just okay, I help, I must do that. We switch the roles, and after, yeah, the dynamics, they can start to be present. Now I like to ask you too about some parent, if is no longer alive, how can someone avoid repeating their patterns, like alcoholism, like, I don't know, I stay here, issues with money, what they can do exactly?
Stopping the transgenerational transference of wounds or imprints of wound like alcoholism, other addictions, violence streaks, etc., is, like in your previous question, focused on awareness. When we understand the systemic entanglements, when we have a clear view of the unattended wounds in the family lines, mother's line, father's line, we can heal these parts of ourselves in ourselves. Because the way I teach this work to my students is that whether the parent is dead or alive, they will always represent an inner part of who we are. It's like what makes us, it's what makes Marius Marius. You are made from parts that some of them are your mother and your father and your siblings and your other members of the family and your ancestors. They all represent not only people that we know or knew if they passed, but they represent inner parts in ourselves. And what we are healing in this work is the relationship between these inner parts. So if father or mother had an alcohol issue, in order not to repeat that, one has to heal their own inner father and or their own inner mother. And sometimes the child actually says thank you to the alcohol, because alcohol helps people to stay in otherwise difficult or impossible situations. So it happens in a process that there was a very good reason for the father or the mother to be abusing alcohol, because it helped them stay. It helped them remain in the place that would otherwise be vacant, or a vacuum would be there instead of a father. So of course it's not an ideal situation, but sometimes the external help, such as alcohol, for the father or the mother to stay, is like a lifeline for the child. So we have to be careful with what we're looking at and how we attend to it. But it is possible to heal, even if the parent died, the inner part. And this is quite significant and very different to other ways of therapy, other ways that therapy is done. So that's the way I do it. That's the way I teach it.
We can work on our relationship even if the parents they are not still alive. That's beautiful with family constellation, right? How can someone notice when they are caring too much from their parent?
When you carry too much, it feels heavy. When
Life
you
is heavy too.
carry beyond your capacity, it will create symptoms. It will make symptoms. The most simple one to give example is back pain. And there is a quote by Bert Hellinger that says, the best cure for a back pain is a deep bow to the mother. So that's just one example.
It's exactly how we start the conversation.
But the jokes aside, the burdens turns very quickly to symptoms. And if one doesn't take care, then they become medical symptoms. They can escalate to be a true and real interference with one's health. So we know through symptoms, and this is why symptoms are not enemies. Symptoms are flags that are coming up and they point us where the attention needs to be given, where the process best heading or starting. So they provide very, very useful information when we look at a burdened child or someone who is burdened by maybe an unresolved victims and perpetrators situation from the family past. And this could also last generations in the system if it is not attended to. So symptoms are the guides.
The symptoms, of course, they are the guide. So the back pain is a little bit a symptom about the relationship with mother and
It's
how we can integrate that. How we can.
It's partly a joke by Bert Hellinger. So,
We
but
don't
of course,
know.
but of course there is something in it. Back pain is often a symbol of a burdened child that carries too much, carried more than they can carry.
And that reflect in the private life, I think in professional life too, because what I notice another things very interesting, how people can work the same job or they have the same career what the parents they have maybe, and I speak about the father. So if the father he work with the hands, it's very very often one child can work with the hands too, and maybe will be some chance to wake up after some years, work with some mentors and to try to understand, hey, but why I work always with the hands and heavy work too. And there too it's a message maybe.
Sometimes the wish to bring the father closer, it's a subconscious longing for the father or the mother, and the child repeats the parent's habit and repeats the parent's career or the parent's skill and gift, sometimes as a wish to find closeness, to find ways to relate when relating in the more conventional ways are not working for some reason, often because of a trauma. So the following one's footsteps would be an indication of an unresolved entanglement. And if it's painful for the child, because sometimes it's not a problem for the child to be the same heavy handwork like the father. Sometimes skills and gifts in terms of one's capability runs in the family. Sometimes the whole generations are people who make jewelry, for example. In certain traditions, it's a very sacred work. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. And again, we look at symptoms. If the symptoms are indicating that they interfere with the child's life, then we look at it and we deal with it as it is an issue. But if it is just a way to keep contact and be closer to the family lines, or maybe to the father's line or to the mother's line, be through a profession, then we may not need to poke it too much. We just leave it as it is, because if it's a life-giving pursuit, then we better not mess with it. If it interferes with life, if it takes life force away from the issue holder, then of course we look at it and we see what's the best way to attend to it.
Yes, amazing, very very beautiful insights, and I hope all of us we can learn and understand what we need at this moment. Ili, if the listeners they would like to come in contact with you, what is the best channel for you?
The best channel is through email. It's London Constellations .uk. So it's Illi at londonconstellations.uk. That's the easiest way. And then we have
Fantastic.
information is available on our website as well. So we have various ways to get in touch.
Yeah, it's very simple in these days. You mentioned too the relationship between brothers and sisters. Here too, it's a very nice match between the sisters and brothers and all this. So, why it's important to know how many brothers and sisters someone has?
We attend to all the members of a system and include all the members of a system in order to find completion, in order to find peace in the family system. So if there are miscarriages or abortions, even if the mother was a teenager, for example, so many years ago, even that will be someone missing. Someone is not given their place in the family system. So why do we look at previous pregnancies on behalf of client's mother or client themselves? Is because the healing comes from the complete system. And when there is someone missing, there is often a tendency for someone else in the family to represent or take their place. And that often is a very heavy task and it feels like a burden when it's done. And often the people who are doing it, they wouldn't even know exactly why they feel this burden or why they feel this discomfort or why they cannot be stable in a relationship or have challenges when they parent their own children. These are just a very short list of potential symptoms when there are members, siblings in the family that are not being acknowledged. And if there are siblings that comes from a split family, so for example, out of wedlock child, a father who has another child with another woman other than the family of origin that we look at, the client system that
Yeah,
we
I
look
have
at,
two. I have
there
three.
will be a split loyalty. And then that split loyalty is often subconscious if this thing is not openly spoken of. And this split will be felt by symptoms. Symptoms are always the guides that show us where it is. And when we find that there are siblings, we create the picture of resolution, which is something that we relate to as the unlived potential in a constellation. It's a very, very important principle that enable finding peace. That's what it enables. Even if this thing that we are creating the unlived potential to manifest is about a lost pregnancy and for the mother to hold that lost pregnancy, for example. If it's an abortion, then to recognize that the mother made a decision and that the circumstances by which those decisions were made can also be named. So we are working with what is, but we also work with the unlived potential. We are also working with what could have been. And I see the what could have been part in a constellation as some kind of a celebration of life, because we are actually sending free the entanglement with not having, the wound of deprivation, whether it's having the child that was aborted, whether it is a love that could not be given or could not be fulfilled from a mother to a child in any other way. So in the unlived potential, which is something I work very closely with, we allow this movement to happen and to complete. And when the movement is allowed to happen and complete, there is peace. And when there is peace, one holds in a very different way the inner parts, which are the siblings and the relatives and the ancestors, in their own inner reality. And when there is peace here, there's also peace with the rest of the world.
Yeah, when I remember when I work my personal story, right? So I have two sisters. Like my father, he made two different child with two different women. My mother too. And after when we navigate, the brothers they don't come alive here in this life. So when I see the whole picture, wow, many brothers. Yeah, so it's very important maybe to have in mind that
Yeah,
because
to make
in the big
space for all of them inside of your inner world.
yeah, to make space of course. And in the beginning I think to myself, I'm the number 4, but actually after the work I was another number, was many different souls, right? Wow, many insights with you, Illy. I must tell you this. So how can people balance supporting siblings?
Well, every family has a burden to carry. I have not met one family that doesn't have a burden, something unresolved from the past that weighs heavily on everyone in the system, anyone and everyone who are involved, who are in that system with their right to belong. Now, this burden is very, very rarely evenly divided by the siblings. Some siblings carries more, others carry less, and this is what needs to be first brought to light. So we ask the questions, we are making the inquiry so that we can get answers to these type of questions. Who carries more of the family burden? Who is the lion's share, we say in English, the majority part of this family pain? Who from the sibling carries that? And then the one that carries more needs to be acknowledged. The one that carries more needs to be seen for the efforts and maybe sacrifices that they have made so that they can get their rightful and appropriate place and recognition and acknowledgement in the family. And if that doesn't happen, what you get is a lot of fight between the siblings, a lot of difficult dynamics between the siblings. So working with siblings is actually a fascinating journey, and to do constellations for that purpose makes things even more exciting and more possible for those who are asking the questions, for those who are making that type of inquiry and work.
I have good relationship with them. We, especially with the two sisters, we connect. I know from the beginning I have some sisters somewhere, and yeah, we try to have good contact in some way. Now, if you have a message for the world, what will be, Ili?
A message for the world of constellation, or for the world in general.
Like you wish.
I think the message for the constellation community is that we have a lot of work to do because the world is in a state of chaos right now. And in this work, we are deeply committed and loyal to order. And when we work with order, we are by definition already acknowledging that there is chaos there and that we are helping and supporting that chaos to find some kind of an ordained reality. So the message for the community is that because there is so much chaos, we need to put our act together and spread the message and the beauty and the insights that this work can bring into the most chaotic realities, into the most difficult situations. And this is partly the legacy of Bert Hellinger that also worked with some very deeply disturbed regions and cultures, and that has a big traumatic history. And now we need more than any other time healers and warriors who are serving the light and working for the highest of good. And this is the kind of work, the kind of gospel, if I can use that term, that I spread when I do my work, when I teach the work to my students, my international students. And every region around the world now has some kind of conflict, some kind of a difficulty, some of them naturally occurring, others more induced. And this work is a huge benefit to those who are the alternative to the chaos. So that's my message.
Yeah, so maybe is the time to put the forces together. This podcast actually is just the bridge to put all these people together, because what I see, if you ask me, and I work too, and I like more the organizational and business constellation and stuff like that, and I have this view 360 degrees upside down, if you want, but not from the ego or something like that. It's just my personal gift, I guess. And I see people around the globe, they work in groups. They are interconnected in some way, but everyone, they work in their own community, if you want. Not all of them, okay? So it's just a time to reflect, maybe, if we want. So it's just a friendly invitation, you know?
Those who feel called to the task of supporting people to awaken and to open their eyes and to recognize their involvement. When we don't heal our own wounds, then our wounds will act out in the world, and we can be supporting the chaos if we are not developing enough awareness in ourselves, supporting our clients to have their own awareness and they awaken from the slumber, from the sleep that prevents us from seeing where is the good, what are we supporting when we do this action or the other action. So there is a big calling right now for anyone who can point people into themselves, into the inner reality, where we can find all the answers. The best way to do it is by healing the wounds that prevents us from seeing what's inside of us in the first place. And Constellations is perfect for that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I like the term bridge. You said and I believe that we are all bridges. Specifically, when we work systemically, when we work with constellations, we are bridges that connect realities. And at the moment, because there is so much chaos, bridges and connecting realities, particularly the kind of reality that supports growth and healing and resolution in the political, in the social, in any field, bridges are very, very important, particularly now.
Now, the last question in the final, and I hope I don't tire you with all my questions. What are the most common realization people have after exploring family relationships in constellations, of course?
People recognize that there is life beyond trauma, whether it's a systemic trauma, or whether it's a personal trauma, or whether it's a national trauma or an international trauma. We also have that more and more. There is power in the core of our wounds. Our wounds are hiding the most profound force that we hold as humans. And constellations can make clear all those things that stands in the way for us to connect with that innate power that is our gift. So when I teach year 3, one of the modules of teaching is called Finding the Gift in the Core of the Wound, which is practically what constellations are all about. We work through the wound so that one can find their power in them, in the wound. We cannot find the power elsewhere unless we look inside and heal those boundaries and barriers that stand in the way. And then when we find that power, we recognize life itself. We have the life itself becomes the subject matter. It's not anymore the pain or the entanglement or the symptoms, but it is more about the evolution of the self, the evolution of us as humans, moving on to the next phase, which is where we are all going. And what we see now in the world is the limitations and the um, the last resort that those who are agents of chaos in government, in banking, in the other areas are putting in our way. So we also do a service when we heal one soul at a time, one issue holder at a time. We are creating stronger and stronger societies, and beautiful communities are also forming around this work. And it's wonderful to see. I work in different places and I see that happening internationally, and it's very, very exciting.
Beautiful, Illi. I would like to thank you very much for tonight. It was a pleasure to meet you and speak with you about all these points, very important in our daily life.
Thank you, Marius. It's been a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for the invitation.
My name is Marius, and thank you for listening.